Happy Friday, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of NHLN Opinion Plus, a weekly series airing every Friday. This is a space for our opinions where we talk about current events and questions the Latino community are curious to know. Today, we're joined by Elissa Margolin, Director of Housing Action New Hampshire. Prior to her roles at Housing Action New Hampshire, Elissa was the Executive Director of the League of American Bicyclists in Washington, D.C. She was also campaign manager for U.S. Congressman John Oliver. Welcome, Elissa, and thank you for joining us today.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. So, for our viewers who might not know what Housing Action New Hampshire is, could you provide a brief introduction of what you do and what your mission is?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Housing Action New Hampshire is a statewide coalition of 80 organizations united around affordable housing policy and ending homelessness in New Hampshire. We work to improve state and federal policy so everyone in the Granite State has a place to call home.
Thank you. And the New Hampshire Housing Relief Program, designed to prevent residents of New Hampshire from losing their homes and becoming homelessness, ended on December 30th of last year. Are there any future programs or policies in the works to help into the new year?
There are, and you are correct. With the first round of CARES Act funds that came through the coronavirus relief funds that went to states, New Hampshire quickly set up a program called New Hampshire Housing Relief Fund. And that provided just about $10 million of housing stabilization to over 3,200 households in our state. That program came to an end in December. However, the new relief package has a lot of rental assistance on the way to states. Nationally, there was included in the new relief package $25 billion for rental assistance. For small states like New Hampshire, that means a $200 million program is on its way to the state. And I believe we have just applied for that through the Department of Treasury, and we'll be setting that up hopefully at record speed to avoid too much lag time between the last program and the new program.
Right. Thank you for that. And so, without a home to keep themselves sheltered and isolated from others, how is COVID-19 affecting the homelessness population of New Hampshire? And what are possible resources that are available for those who need it?
Well, that's an excellent question. Right when the pandemic hit, we heard a lot of new language that we think has been in our vocabulary for a long time, but things like social distancing and stay-at-home orders, these were new concepts for many of us. And yet, if you are someone experiencing homelessness, these are really grave situations. You can't stay at home if you don't have a home. You can't socially distance if you're in an emergency shelter where your bunk bed is only 2 feet apart from your roommates. So we really needed to come together and advocate for that population. And it really, in partnership with the state, we were able to implement new regional strategies so that we could lower the census inside shelters and stand up new spaces so that we could accommodate the people in need of shelter. We also partnered with the state on a place for quarantine should someone become positive. I will say that the shelter community, the leadership, the state, the resources, I feel like everyone really came together to provide that emergency space and assistance and guidance. However, the pandemic is a serious threat, and it is whether you live, in a 5-story single-family home or you're in a shelter. And after one of the shelters experienced some positives, we did see an expansion of unsheltered homeless. So we saw an expansion of encampments around some of our larger cities in the state.
Thank you. And so what might some of those cities be?
So the city of Manchester, for example, we've always known that there have been encampments there. We've always had, street outreach, social workers doing amazing work, and the city and the state did work to provide those folks who were unsheltered with services. However, the number of encampments started to expand, and I believe there were at one point over 30 encampments in the city of Manchester. But there sometimes encampments are hidden. I live in the city of Portsmouth, which is a small city of about 22,000 people. I know we have encampments. This a small city of Keene, New Hampshire, also has them. But with some of the new resources, we have really expanded what is commonly referred to as street outreach. So we see a lot. We have a lot more professionals, working with people who are in encampments and trying to get them into shelter and housing.
Right. Okay. Thank you. According to a 2018 study done by the National Alliance to End Homelessness, African Americans make up more than 40% of the homelessness population and represent just 13% of the general population. And those identifying as Hispanic make up 18% of the general population, but 21% of the homeless population. Do you see a similar trend in the state of New Hampshire?
We definitely have racial disparity in our homeless population, and it was recently documented in a report by the New Hampshire Coalition to End Homelessness. And so, I know that those data are available, and it is something I think that the homeless service community is trying to recognize, both in terms of, accessibility of services, whether that be language barriers or, are coming up with cultural competencies so that we're serving people in a way that is the most helpful to them. But I think as a state in general, we need to make sure that we're evaluating who we're serving and how they need to be served, and making sure that we have the right folks serving them. And I think it's important that we make sure that we're addressing those disparities for folks who are experiencing homelessness, as well as those who need housing, who are waiting in line for vouchers, and everything that that is part of the makeup of finding oneself in such a vulnerable situation.
Right. Thank you. What are some resources available for communities of color to prevent or end homelessness, either from your organization, Housing Action, or from the government more general?
So we at Housing Action New Hampshire, we are a policy organization. So we're looking at policy development. We're certainly about advocacy, coalition building, coming together, raising the voice of our members to make sure that we're getting the resources and a policy landscape that is friendly to addressing the needs of those experiencing homelessness, but also just generally moderate and low income people who are in need of more affordable housing options. So I think we are not a service organization, although I have found that during the pandemic, it's basically an all hands on deck environment, and I take calls regularly from people in need just to play our part in directing them to where services can be found. If someone is experiencing housing instability, the best way to bring down homelessness is to avoid becoming homeless in the first place. So if someone is experiencing financial struggles and needs support with rent, they should contact their community action program in their region, and they can find out which agency serves them by going to the website capnh.org. That's CAPNH.org. They can also call 211, which is that kind of catch-all that will can help connect by phone to service agencies, and also 211 will let anyone who's actually experiencing homelessness know about any available beds in the state.
Okay, amazing. We'll be sure to include all those resources in our website doc and under the video. I'm wondering any policies that Housing New Hampshire is currently pushing right now and looking forwards to supporting into the new year?
Absolutely. So our legislative session in the state of New Hampshire just started, and we have a number of bills that we're really excited about. One is supports our department's request to expand homeless services. So we have a bill that's been sponsored by Senator Rosenwald, who's the senator from Nashua, to support an expansion of the state funding that goes into providing shelters the case management that they need to help the folks who are there serving either in shelter or who are unsheltered and need to come into shelter. That would be a real game changer for us, I think, in the state. One of the things the department found was that it costs about $47 per bed per individual to provide shelter to someone experiencing homelessness. And then the state did an analysis and recognized that they were only paying $8 of that $47 cost. So this appropriation would help bring the state up to about a halfway match, because shelters do a lot of fundraising in their communities on their own. And I think that that is a better and more sustainable model. In addition to that bill, there's also a bill from the Senate Majority Leader to provide a state appropriation to our affordable housing fund. Affordable housing is developed through a public-private partnership. So, public dollars incentivize either more federal resources or very often private capital that goes into developing more affordable housing. And then those savings are passed on to residents. So Senator Bradley's bill to provide an extra appropriation of the Affordable Housing Fund will really help with the core of the problem, and that is that we have a supply side problem, right? We don't have enough units, and so it's important to remember that shelter doesn't cure homelessness. Homes cure homelessness, so we need to build more homes. In addition, we also have a bill that I call the Toolbox Bill that's been sponsored by Representative Joe Alexander that provides a lot of incentives, both economic development incentives at the local level and predictability of process. Because even after you get these state level resources, often developers see barriers at the local level. And that bill is the culmination of a lot of work over a couple of years by a task force that was convened by the governor. It didn't make it through the session, mostly due to the truncated session due to the pandemic last year. So I hope we get that across the finish line this year.
Absolutely. Well, we look forward to following your work and seeing where these policies go and how much change they can create in these communities.
Thank you.
Yes, and thank you so much for talking with us, Elissa Margolin, and for being our guest on NHLN Opinion Plus.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
We appreciated your time. So everyone, please tune in next week for another episode. Follow us on Twitter at NH Latino News and Instagram at NH_Latino News. I'm Belen Dumont with NHLN Opinion Plus. See you all next time.